Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here is your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
All right, my friends, as I shared yesterday, I've made special accommodations here today. And listen, I am happy to do it. I made special accommodations today to make sure I was behind this microphone, even as we are out of town. For a basketball tournament that one of my daughters is in. So it's good to be here. If you have thoughts or questions, or you just want to communicate with me, I welcome you to do that. You can text 317-785-1030. That's a direct line to me. I will get it. If it is worthy of a response, I will respond to you. But that's something that you can do now here on this program, and I appreciate you tuning in here today, my friends. Now, let me say that there's a lot of confusion out there about something called kratom. You've probably heard the headlines or read the headlines, heard the storylines. Most of those stories are based on synthetic garbage that's not even real kratom. Real kratom is natural, it's tested, it's handled with care. That's what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. You don't get the synthetic garbage that's given kratom a bad name. Family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is lab-tested for purity. There's no chemicals, no fillers, no shortcuts. This, by the way, has been a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations. And it is a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a warning label that is a mile long. Start with their Kratom Starter Pack. If this is something that you've done your research on and it's something you want to give a try, start with that Kratom Starter Pack. Use coupon code Todd Huff. You'll save 10% on your first order. Christopher's Organic Botanicals.com. That's Christopher's Organic Botanicals.com. Truth, tradition, and transparency, my friends. Okay. I want to talk today. And now listen, I had to change my schedule as to when I actually am producing the program. So if there are developments between the time that I've produced this and which is not the normal time, just be advised that could be the case. But I want to talk about a piece of legislation that has been introduced by the Democrats to try to get rid of President Trump using the 25th Amendment. I tell you what, it never ends with these folks. So that's what I want to talk about here today. This is, as always, in the stack of stuff, which you will get if you get our Inner Circle daily emails, which go out about 5 p.m. each evening after the program, giving you some additional articles and always the links to the things we discuss on the program. And you can sign up for that. It's totally free. Just text the word truth to 317-785-1030. But here's the article. I'm going to read from it here today and talk about this. House Dems unveil bill to examine removing Trump using 25th Amendment. Unveil bill is hard to say. Unveil bill. I want to say unveil bail, but it's a little bit of a tongue twister for me. They unveil a bill to examine removing Trump using the 25th Amendment. The subheadline here, by the way, written by Louis Cassiano of Fox News, the bill would create a 17-member commission. Oh, yes, the The ever so tried and true commission. If you want to make me roll my eyes in disgust, tell me you're going to have a commission do so. I'm sure there's a commission somewhere that's done something that's helpful to mankind and humanity. But let's be honest, the vast majority of the time, commissions are nothing more than sideshows. What we definitely need less of in our society are groups of people who have political axes to grind instead of the people that have already actually been elected to make these decisions or who are in the roles already, as there's a pretty clear path for how to invoke the 25th Amendment. But anyway, this bill would create a 17-member commission to assess whether Trump can discharge presidential duties. I mean, who here thinks? Think about the people on the left that you know today. Think about, I mean, I'm talking about the left. I'm not talking about people who are just a Democrat. I'm not talking about people who are even left of center or liberal even. I'm talking about devoted, foaming at the mouth leftists. People who deny reality. People who can't define what a woman is. People who believe that we should have open borders. People who just push the envelope when it comes to ridiculousness that prevails in our culture. You know who I'm talking about. These are the people who at their core do not believe in God, and it is an unwritten agreement they have with one another to say, listen, as long as we band together, for those of us who, we have a worldview that's anti-God and anti-Bible, and there's a whole host of crazy things that we think should be normalized, from pedophilia to forcing people what vehicle to drive, treating animals like people, and everything else. We're going to band together here because we all have this unwritten agreement that we're not going to say anybody's belief is untrue. We all hate Western civilization. We hate Western culture. We hate Judean Christian society. They hate these things. And so they get together and they're foaming at the mouth. They never make any sense. They act like they don't understand things. It's an act. Friends, it is an act. You sit here and you think about some of these things that are just blatantly obvious. What should be done or what's wrong about a particular issue. I mean, even take something like, I would even say birthright citizenship. Listen, we can debate what the 14th Amendment specifically means, but to just say that logically, if you can break into a country and have a child on that land, that is the way that citizenship should work. Nobody's serious who thinks that. They're acting like they're confused. You know, there's stories here. Without getting too, it didn't involve me personally, but I know of a person who goes, I think, out of town maybe for the whole winter. You know, like a snowbird, for example. They travel to Arizona or Texas or Florida or whatever, and they leave their home. Well, somebody comes into their home, and they basically just live there. They know the person's gone. I think the water was turned off. I know of this story. Anyway, so the person comes in, sets up shop, and then because they've been there for some period of time, it becomes a nightmare for the homeowner who actually owns it to get the person out of their house. By the law, you've heard people. There's stories about what do you call the? I'm just drawing a blank here at the moment. When you would rent, instead of a hotel room, a vacation home or whatever. People would. There was a story of someone on the West Coast who rented the home, Airbnb. There we go. I couldn't think of the first word. An Airbnb or whatever, a VRBO. People say they rent the place for 90 days and then they refuse to leave. Well, some of these laws in some of these states make it very difficult to actually evict the person because they can say, well, I've lived here for 90 days, so you just can't kick me out. It's just crazy and ridiculous stuff. So, the left acts like these things make sense. And, there's several reasons for this. Number one, they have a morally bankrupt worldview. The Bible makes it clear that if you reject truth and just refuse to accept it, you're going to be effectively you're going to lose your ability to reason and to think clearly. And that's, I think, what we witness to some degree. Reprobates is the term that is used in the Bible. Reprobates. And we have that among us. People who have lost their ability to reason because they have so excused sinful lifestyles and behavior. Woe to him who calls evil good and all this sort of stuff. They've done that. So that's part of the reason. That's one of the reasons why they don't seem to understand, because they've already become, to some degree, reprobates. Again, not every person, but some of these extreme, godless, radical leftists they have. Sometimes they don't want to understand because understanding would mean that they have to change or accept that their worldview is absolutely delusional. And so there are reasons for this. They can somehow win elections with this. If someone with letters after their name, PhD or whatever, comes on a news program and tells certain people that something that makes no sense actually makes the most sense, and they say, well, he's got PhD at the end of his name, he must know what he's talking about. There's a lot of that. My dad coined the term. I think he coined it to me. Maybe it's out there somewhere else, but my dad, I love my father. He was a union rep, and he had to deal with some people in management that sometimes, I would say, had given up their common sense in exchange for a degree. This happens a lot, by the way. This is why some people, they want to put their accolades and their accomplishments and their degrees after their name. And honestly, the more someone insists on doing that, the less impressive they are to me. I think, my goodness, are they so insecure that people would see them as intelligent and smart on their own that they got to remind us that, hey, I'm smart because of the, and again, if you have this at the end of your name, I'm not saying this is a universal truth, but you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about those people who insist on this sort of stuff and who are just think that education, going through a formal education process and getting a degree and showing up and taking the test, that somehow that makes you smarter than the rest of people on the planet or in America or whatever. That's just simply not the case. Some of the most intelligent people I know never set foot in college. It's what you learn. It's how you think. And some of the smart, especially living in a small farming community, there are people who have, quote unquote, only, if you listen to some of the arrogant people, the arrogant leftist talks, some of the people who are, quote unquote, only farmers, and I don't believe that. Some people think that, you must be dumb to be a farmer. You only became a farmer because you couldn't pass college, and nothing could be further from the truth. There's stories here. There's an auction house not far from where I live, and they sell big combines and a lot of equipment every other month. It's a huge auction. People come from all around, and there's stories of farmers going in there, buying combines, opening up the pocket on their bibbed overalls, and paying for it with cash. And listen, not that money means everything, but to act like the only smart people are the ones who have gone through the liberal indoctrination process is a wild, wild ride for me to be taking. In fact, I sit there, I've shared with you before, I took a class in college at Butler, and it was one of the last classes I took there. It was, I think, my junior year. And it was a class that had both political science majors, that's what I studied, and education majors. And we went to a classroom. We were actually at a school. I forget which one it was. It was an IPS school in Indianapolis. We did some things with the students. And I still remember this. There was a girl who was a teacher who I liked. She was smart. I think she was a good person. We were debating or talking about an issue one day, and I shared my opinion, and she's like, well, that's not what the book said. And I was just shocked that she said it. And I looked at her and I said, that's not what the book said. I said, well, what do you think? And she looked at me as though she had no idea what she thought. She's like, I don't know what I think. The book said this. I said, I don't care what the book says. What do you think? And that was an eye-opening experience to me, because too many people think education means that you go in there and you just basically memorize all the things that the smart people tell you to think, which is idiotic to me. That lasts for me about 1 millisecond, because that's not at all how I go about things. If you can't explain it to me, then I'm not going to accept it. And I think that's a healthy way to be, right? I mean, if someone's insisting, well, you just have to believe it because I said it. Well, why? I mean, what's so special about you? Respectfully, what's so special about you? If you can't explain it, then you don't understand it well enough for me to really think that you know what you're talking about. I'm not just going to take it on, you agree with it because you heard someone else say it. But this is what education has become, and this is what a lot of the people who are in Congress, and undoubtedly these people who are trying to pass a version of the 25th Amendment, or I guess I should say invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Trump. That's effectively what they're trying to do. Here's what the article says. House Democrats on Tuesday, earlier this week, unveiled a long shot bill. Of course, it's not going to pass. It's pure sophistry and political theater, by the way. In a possible attempt to remove President Trump from office using the 25th Amendment. The 10-page legislation introduced by House Judiciary Committee Ranking Member Jamie Raskin, Democrat from the People's Republic of Maryland, would create a 17-member commission to assess whether the amendment could be used to boot Trump from the White House. The panel would be composed of several physicians. There you go. Get some doctors on there. Let's get some doctors on there, some experts, and they're going to tell us. This is a version of technocracy, of a technocracy. A technocracy is where people say, listen, liberty's fine. It's not the most important thing. What we need are the people who are experts in all these fields making all these decisions for us. We should give up our rights to make our own decisions in their fields of expertise because they are infinitely smarter than we are. Remember, this is all being done, by the way, 6 years after we were told we couldn't get within 6 feet of someone in public because we might contract COVID or share COVID with them. This is in the same basic time frame that we were told that we needed to wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID, even though there was no evidence that wearing masks prevented the spread of the virus, especially since the virus, when it was turned into an aerosol, could actually fit inside the holes of the fabric of a mask. I mean, none of this ever made sense, but people believed it because the experts told them to. They made songs about it. I saw someone post on the 6-year anniversary of COVID, this poor young, I hate to be too hard on him, but this young skull full of mush who's singing Dr. Fauci, cure this disease. I forget it. He was singing it to the tune of Mr. Sandman. I'm not going to sing for you, but Dr. Fauci, cure the disease, just singing about the vaccine and just ridiculous stuff. Nurses in hospitals doing the same thing. Why? What is going on? You're just supposed to trust them. Trust the science. None of that's scientific, by the way. So now they want to have all these technocrats telling us whether or not the president of the United States is fit to serve. Not only will it be composed of several physicians, going back to the article here, former high-ranking executive officials appointed by congressional leaders from both parties, they'll also be on the panel. Well, if that doesn't make you feel good about things, well, I don't know what will. You got high-ranking executive officials from both parties. You got politicians on there. They're going to get to the bottom of this. They're going to tell us if Trump, of course, is fit for office. And, of course, what do you think you're going to get? The people on the commission will be the same people like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney when they were on the phony January 6th commission, right? Those were the only Republicans they'd let on that sideshow. It'd be the same sort of thing here. Now, the Republicans are in charge of the Senate and the House, so it's a different world, but you know what I'm saying. This is that there are people in the Republican Party that don't like Trump either. It's just the stupidity of this whole thing. Here we go. The bill says this: the commission shall carry out a medical examination of the president to determine whether the president is mentally or physically unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office, the bill reads. Democratic and Republican leaders of each chamber of Congress would select 4 physicians and 4 psychiatrists. You've got to be kidding me. This is technocracy at its finest. We got a team of 8 physicians and 8 psychiatrists who are going to serve on this commission. The 16 appointed members would then vote to select an additional member to chair the body. Who should that be? Obama? Should he chair this body? Many House and Senate Democrats have called for Trump to be removed from office or impeached after he wrote that a whole civilization will die tonight. By the way, that time has come and gone. A whole civilization didn't die tonight. This stuff is so maddening to me. These people don't want to understand what Trump is really saying. Again, so much of this can be traced back to the old adage that people who support Trump take him seriously and not literally. People who hate Trump and oppose him take him literally and not seriously. This is just pure sophistry, nonsense, political sideshow, political theater, and it's not even good. This is idiotic and stupid. It's one big game to fire up the base, to try to give them hope, to get some fundraising, whatever else. I got to take a break here, though, my friends. You know, one of the biggest challenges that conservatives face is finding ways to ensure your values align with everything you do, including how you invest your money. 4-8 Financial specializes in what they call biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith and your values. This helps you from funding things that go completely against what you believe in. This all makes sense, right? So they do the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is complete an assessment. They'll do all the analysis. They'll tell you how much your current investments align with your values. So you can take that assessment. It's quick. It's easy. At 48financial.com/Todd. Again, 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, because your money should work for your values. I've got to take a break. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. What makes people, seriously, what is so appealing about this to people? What makes them feel like this is the solution? Yes, we got to get the experts in there. We got to get doctors, 8 doctors and 8 psychiatrists. If we're supposed to trust the medical establishment so much, why do we need 8 of them? What if it's 5-3? Is it a majority vote then? Are we then told that if we trust the 5, that's trusting the science? What about the other 3? Are the other 3 not legitimate doctors? This is just the idiocy of this. In logic, there's something called, there's lots of logical fallacies, right? One of those logical fallacies is the appeal to authority. And what that basically means is that when you're making an argument and your argument concludes with a statement, just telling someone because so-and-so said it, that's logically sound. Now, I would say at some point, the only logical conclusion I think that we can, or the time that we can logically conclude from that, make that conclusion, is when God himself tells us something. At some point, if God says, because I told you so, based upon everything else we know about him, which is that he's eternal, He's omniscient. He knows everything. He's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. He is the great cause, the first cause of everything. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He holds all things together. He holds time in his hands. Time and the universe are in his hands. We just had this, I told the kids the other day, we just had this Artemis 2 go around the moon. And it's the furthest anyone has ever been from planet Earth. But if you look at that, that distance in comparison to the size of the universe, it's almost zero, right? The distance from here around the moon in comparison to the size and scope of the universe is practically zero. And God holds it all in his hands. The only time you could ever say to me, and I'm not saying, even as a Christian, I'm not saying that that should be the answer. There are reasons to the thing, to believe the things that are in the Bible and so forth. But there's some things we don't have explanations for. And God says, listen, I don't have to explain everything to you. In fact, there's a book written kind of about that when Job, the book of Job, the oldest book in the Bible, goes to, had this series of incredibly difficult circumstances. He asks God why and asks God questions. And God said, where were you, Job, when I put the universe together, when I told the sun where to go and the waters where to stop? Or did I consult with you when I did this? At some point, I don't owe you an explanation. I have proven it to you that not only am I'm not just another opinion out there that's educated. I am, God would say, the great I am. So, but to say this about a person or another authority figure is preposterous. And what it shows us when someone says, well, the FDA says this, well, that means nothing. Actually, to me, when you tell me that, and I'm guessing a good chunk of you, when someone tells me the FDA says something, do I have to remind you the food pyramid? I mean, the food pyramid has literally been eviscerated. What I was taught in school, you're supposed to get 6 to 11 servings of grains, and I don't even remember what it was, 4 to 5 of vegetables and 2 to 3 of fruit or whatever it was. I mean, it's basically been turned on its head. And RFK Jr. and the Trump administration has done some of that. But now we're told that that's anti-science. Why is that anti-science and the science before it not? Because it's political. By the way, have you ever noticed that they'll say 97% of scientists agree that man is contributing to climate change. Man is the cause of climate change and causing the sea levels to rise and all that. And we're just supposed to say, wow. Just don't ask any questions. Don't ask for an explanation of that. Just wow. I did see, by the way, and I forget where I saw this. There was a story where a glacier has melted. Not completely, it's just receded. And under that glacier were trees. Trees that they could date as being, I'm going to pick a number, I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was like 1,000 years old. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there was a period of time when the ice wasn't there in the past, and those trees were allowed to grow and to grow very, very tall. They were there for a long time, and then the glacier came over them, and then when it receded, they were there. So we know there was a point in time that the conditions on planet Earth in that particular place, wherever it was, I don't remember that, where the trees could grow that tall. And then the glaciers came in. So was it global warming before that? Was it man contributing to global warming long before the automobile and the airplane and everything else? See, they don't want to answer those questions. They just want to say, listen to the experts. How many times did you hear that during COVID? I'm to the point where if someone tells me they're an expert, I literally have no interest in listening to what they say. Because if you're truly someone who has expert knowledge, you will be able to explain it, right? If you can't explain something, if you can't explain it, you don't have a good enough understanding of it. I know when I became a follower of Jesus, I shared with you maybe the last episode that I didn't know a thing about the Bible. I think I've said I knew there was a guy named Moses. I knew there was a guy named David. And I knew there was a guy named Jesus I needed to be really concerned about. That's really, and I mean, that's a little bit, hyperbole, I guess, but that's pretty close to true. I didn't know anything. And I'll tell you what I did to learn. I started teaching it. And you know who I taught? I kid you not. I had a group of kids that to this day I can remember their faces. I can remember the people in that class. I can remember Justin, who I thought was a great little dude, and Tiffany. I can remember Garrett. I can remember these kids. And I can remember Alec. I can remember teaching them, and they thought that I was just there to teach them, but I was there to learn. The best way sometimes to learn something is to take the responsibility of having to teach it. And I could barely get enough knowledge to teach the 5-year-olds. But that's where I started. And to be able to get a good enough understanding to where you can explain it to 5-year-olds, that shows that you have at least a rudimentary or a fundamental understanding of a topic. And these people can't do it. Why do I need to stay 6 feet away? Because Dr. Fauci said. Well, why did Dr. Fauci say? Well, there's no reason for that. It was an arbitrary number. He's told us that. It's on record now. He's on the record of saying that. But we were told to trust the science. None of it was science. None of it was science. But we're supposed to now trust for 8 physicians and 8 psychiatrists, I guess, to have a majority decision, because that's democracy. And democracy should be trusted at all costs, which of course is nuts. Of course, the idea of self-governance is great, but democracy, where you can actually vote in a pure democracy, the majority can take away the property and the rights of someone else, that's not a good thing. Why are we acting like this is? You should understand that democracy, left to its own devices, can create some bad things. That's why we have a republic that puts up some guardrails, that lists at least some, enumerates some of our rights, so that we're not just having a vote, a majority rule on everything, whether or not a person can have $1 million or not. If you have more than $1 million, if the majority says that you've got to give your home to the poor and you go live in a tent, should that be what happens? I mean, this is crazy stuff. But these folks can't explain it because they don't have an understanding of it. They just want you to let them run the show, not ask any questions, follow their expertise. Don't get upset whenever you see that they've been padding their portfolios with insider information they get when they serve in Washington, D.C. This is a sideshow shenanigan, just like everything else that happens that the Democrats introduce and the Rhino Republicans introduce in Washington, D.C. What an absolute sideshow. Friends, you've worked hard, you've made smart choices, and now it's about making sure that effort counts, not just for today, but for the future. Full Suite Wealth helps forward-thinking people with a coordinated approach to wealth, legacy, and legal planning, including private equity, private credit, and options strategies. They'll help you see the big picture, plan ahead, and make your success truly matter for the people you care about most. The goal is a plan that stands the test of time. Visit FullSuiteWealth.com. That's FullSuiteWealth.com. Reach out to them, my friends. If this is the sort of thing that you're in need of, they will take good care of you. Jason and his team will at FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. Quick time out, my friends. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. This 25th Amendment nonsense, it's right there for anybody who wants to see it. It really is. I just don't know who wants to see it. It's the battle lines have been drawn. The Democrats are not serious. The left is doing whatever they can. As I've explained before, this is an extension of the Seinfeld-Newman strategy, where, again, if you're familiar with Seinfeld, or even if you're not, Jerry had an arch nemesis, Jerry Seinfeld did, named Newman. Newman worked for the U.S. Postal Service. By the way, if you want to know what's wrong with the U.S. Postal Service, that's actually not a bad place to start, watching Seinfeld and watching Newman. But Newman wanted to get relocated to Hawaii. That was his dream location. And Jerry told him he would help him do whatever it took because he wanted to see Newman get the job and move away. And he told Newman this. He said, I'll do whatever it takes as long as it takes me, so long as it takes you away from me. And that's the Seinfeld-Newman strategy for Trump. From the left, as they deal with him, they'll do whatever it takes as long as it takes them, so long as it takes Trump away from political power, away from the White House. Impeachment, fine. They don't care if that's what it takes. Imprisonment, fine. If you can get him on the 25th Amendment, go for it. If you can get him on something else, criminal charges, civil charges, the biggest civil penalty in the history of civilization, hammer him with all that. Just whatever it takes. It's truly whatever it takes, as long as it takes them. And it is, they are obstructionists. It is a game for them. They are playing a role. It is an act. This is not real. They know it. They're just trying to basically to sell a narrative to enough people. And there's a bunch of people that just will buy whatever narrative they're selling just because they want the Democrats to succeed. And so whatever it takes, they're on board. So it only takes a few more people, a few normal people or semi-normal people to realize, well, to fall for the shenanigans and end up being useful idiots, willing or non-willing accomplices, it doesn't matter, for the agenda of the radical left. This is what we're up against. Friends, I want to tell you too, just really quickly here, we have a partnership with MyPillow. We've had this for several years now. I want to say thank you. Thank you for your partnership with MyPillow. Thank you for purchasing. MyPillow wants to say thank you as well. This is one of the ways that helps the program. Whenever you purchase a product using our discount code, you get a discount, and so you get a better price, and we get some support from MyPillow whenever that happens. So if you're shopping MyPillow, they have a wide variety of products. It's an American-first company. Mike Lindell, a patriot over there, makes these things in Minnesota. He's running for governor of Minnesota. I hope he wins. That would be absolutely fantastic. We had him on the program, and I enjoyed his voice was out that day. His voice was out that day. I do remember that. But I've gotten to have a good relationship with MyPillow and just really think a lot of their organization, of his leadership, the quality of their products. We use their products here. They've got great products. Check them out, mypillow.com. Promo code Todd, get you those discounts, and it helps this program provide the content to reach more people, to grow, and that sort of stuff. Mypillow.com, promo code Todd. So, this is the strategy of the left, and I don't know, by this particular point in time, there are very few minds that are not made up about Trump. The people that love him are going to support him. The people that hate him are going to oppose him. And there are some people in the middle who, will make up their minds on a case-by-case basis. I try to be fair-minded. There's honestly very little that he does that bothers me because I think I've got a pretty clear understanding of what he's doing. I think that there absolutely is a method to his madness, and I think it's necessary. I think that Trump's style and strategy has been like a cold bucket of water dumped over the heads of the American people in a good way because we've been apathetic for all these years. But they are bringing out every conceivable tool at their disposal, right? The 25th Amendment, they can't be possible, or they can't be serious. We just had an administration where the guy, Joe Biden, didn't know what he was doing or where he was sometimes. I don't want to overstate it, and I don't take any pleasure in it, to be quite honest. It was sad to watch, but the guy had no idea what was going on. If at any point in the history of American presidents, the 14th Amendment needed to be implemented, it was in the last administration. It was. And we act like, or the left acts like, Trump is the real threat, the real danger. This is just silliness. It really is. But this is, again, what they do. Distract, deceive, mislead, malign Trump. This is just who they are. We've got to come to grips with that. But these are their strategies. Fortunately, I think enough people have awakened to the reality of how they've been manipulated over the course of time. And I think most of us had at some point been naive to this. I remember when my eyes became open to what was going on in Washington, D.C., and I didn't want to believe it at first. So I know that there's a process to come to that conclusion. But anyway, that's what they're doing. I've got to go. Have a great weekend. SDG.